Hello. Let me read this for you real quick. I'm not bothered by the so-called sanctions. I have no business in the United States of America. I'm concentrating on my work as the UPDF Chief of Military Intelligence. The threats we have in the region need more concentration. I will not allow to be diverted. It is political, and I'm not a politician. Major General Abel Kandiho, the CMI commander. Those were his words after the United States of America inflicted or put sanctions on him, known as the Global Magnitsky sanctions. Now, this makes Kandiho the second high-ranking military officer to be sanctioned by the USA. So what does this mean? And what does this mean politically and all this kind of stuff? Now, the sanctioning of Abe Kandiho is really interesting because it comes at a time when he is still serving within Museveni's government. The fact that he is still sitting as a military intelligence chief is really a very big impact to Museveni. Because when you look at people like Kaihura, who were put under sanction, Kaihura had already been demoted. He had already been fired. He was no longer the IGP and all this kind of stuff. But Abe Kandiho is one of those generals that you can think of that he has been very much in the background. You could see him around. He doesn't talk much, but he does a lot for Museveni. He's one of Museveni's most trusted individuals, and one that you could look at that would be handed, or that is among those people that could be given the baton, or that would be in control over the country, after Museveni's departure in one way or the other. So these sanctions, we all know how they work. For those of you who have watched my episodes on Kaihura, we all know that when global Magnitsky sanctions are put on you, what it means is that what is funny is that Mr. Kandiho says that he has no business in America. That's true. But the problem with that, Mr. Kandiho, is you are a bit selfish, you as an individual, to think that these sanctions are only going to affect you is really sad, because I believe you have family, you have relatives. And what is interesting about these particular sanctions, I think Mr. Kandiho should now go and talk to General Kaihura, because they also target your friend, your family, close family, as well as close relatives. The global Magnitsky sanctions, they go after your bank accounts in America and any countries that are signatory or that have similar sanctions. Number one. Number two, you cannot travel to these countries. You cannot do any sort of money transfer in these particular countries in one way or the other. For any company that deals with you in any capacity, what that means is that that company is going to be sanctioned as well. It also means that Mr. Kandiho cannot be anywhere near any programs that are being run by the United States. We know very well that the United States has been a very big funder of the Museveni dictatorship in terms of military training, in terms of providing financial aid, as well as military artillery to the Museveni regime. Now, for all these sorts of trainings, all these sorts of cooperation that the US has been having with Uganda, it means that Kandiho cannot be part of. That is what the sanctions mean. Because for most people who will just say sanctions, but they don't understand what these sanctions mean for Mr. Abe Kandiho. I was digging up this gentleman, and he's a really fascinating figure, because he's a very, very powerful guy in the country, and he's really powerful. And he was actually caught at a time when he was at the pinnacle of his power in the country, using the position of the chief of military intelligence. Kandiho is the gentleman who is responsible for bringing down General Kaihura and his entire network. He's the gentleman responsible for, if you look at the relations between Uganda and Rwanda, why they are very, very tense these days, it's because of this guy. He's feared both in Uganda as well as in Rwanda. And that's why you see when the Americans were making their statement about Kandiho, this is what they said. that Major General Abel Kandiho and other CMI officers arrested, detained, and physically abused persons in Uganda. The CMI targeted individuals due to their nationality, political views, or critique of the Ugandan government. Individuals were taken into custody and held, often without legal proceedings, at CMI detention facilities where they were subjected to horrific beatings and other egregious acts by the CMI officials, including sexual abuse, electrocutions, and often resulting in significant long-term injury and even death. So the pencil-thin General is renowned for targeting people because of their nationalities, and what they mean here is because he was majorly targeting. He was one of those people who targeted the Rwandan dissidents that were running to Uganda. The Rwandan so-called people, some Rwandese who are living, anyone who had connection with Rwanda. People were being arrested and taken away. You remember the vice chancellor of Victoria University. So many people have been arrested. That's why it is funny to see people thinking that the Rwandese in Uganda are safe. They are not. They are being persecuted, by the way, and heavily persecuted. That is, if you follow the politics between Kigali and Kampala, it's really interesting. And what I discovered is that Kandiho was at the center of all this, hunting down all these Rwandan people and labeling them as spies and things like that. So he was powerful. So at the time the sanctions got him, they got him at a time when he was the pinnacle of his power. Because the position he held as a CMI official, he's literally the police these days, because we have no Inspector General of Police. The one we have, I think he now got Omicron. He has gotten all sorts of corona variants. Everyone that comes, he has. Okoso Ochora, he got the Delta, he got the first wave, the second wave. Now he even has Omicron. That's why he's no longer present. And now Kandiho is the one running the show in everything, in the police. Even you could say he has some power in ISO. He's literally trusted by Museveni. And it also comes at the time when Uganda has invaded Congo, which is really interesting. And that's why you see the UPDF came up with a statement saying this and that and all that kind of stuff, which is funny. But I will go back to Kandiho's statement where he said that he's not bothered. He should be bothered. Now, for me as a person, does this excite me? Of course, it is something small, but we believe that the United States should be sanctioning everyone, all these generals and all these people that have been doing all this kind of stuff. But the fact that they have gotten Kandiho is a really big fish. It's big. It's really big. Some people should not think that this is a light catch. And the sanctions put on him, meaning that he cannot be anywhere or any program that the United States gets involved in. It means that Kandiho cannot be anywhere near. Because if he's near any program, the United States has to completely cut it off. But above all this, we also see that it comes at a time when, of course, Rwanda as well is at, the relations between Uganda and Rwanda at Kagame and Museveni are at the lowest. And someone might think that maybe the Americans might have thought that it is Kandiho that is steering these relations. Because if you look at Rwanda and how they portray Kandiho, my God, it is really, 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 you see that Rwanda is really not a very good friend of this general. And I believe that maybe if the United States is trying to work out something, Kandiho might have to fall on the axe. And then maybe relations have to be, between Museveni and Kagame can start from there. Because the Rwandese believe that it is Kandiho that is causing all these problems, and they believe that he's not a good guy and all that kind of stuff. But then what we see here analytically is that Kandiho is likely to be dropped, because any general that is being targeted for sanctions, or anyone that is hinted to be targeted for sanctions, Museveni always puts them in the background. And so Kandiho is also likely to have that particular sort of fall, because this does not just come out of the blue, because most of the things they say that he was among those people, the human rights violations, NUP, people power, beating up people, November killings, the reports. Of course, the pressure has been there. Now, lastly, this comes at a time when the US is also going to hold a US democracy so-called summit via Zoom, where Museveni was not invited. But we see that Kenya was invited, and some other countries like Zambia and so on and so forth, and Malawi. and other African countries, but Museveni was not invited. So it means that the relationship between Uganda and the US is a love-hate relationship. Some people are supposed to fall, and some people are supposed to be sacrificed for this relationship between Museveni and the US to work. Because I strongly believe the reason as to why Uganda is in Congo, it is because of the support of the US. It is the US that's supporting Museveni's invasion in the Congo. You cannot rule that out, like it or not. Because you cannot tell me that Museveni went into Congo without the knowledge of the Americans, without the knowledge of the European Union and all these people, but at most without the knowledge of the Americans as well as the French. Because look here, even when in 1994, when they were attacking to oust Mobutu out of power, Kagame had to inform the Americans that, look here, you guys, if you do not stop the persecution of the so-called dissidents and all this kind of stuff, the Rwandese that were living in, Eastern Congo going to invade, and the Americans, had to just keep quiet and they had to look on. It was really, really, really a tough war. And of course, Museveni had to inform the Americans that he is also joining Kagame in ousting Mobutu. And whatever happened, happened. So what is happening, or what I'm saying politically, is that the Americans will deal with Museveni secretly, but they would like to also play to cut some of his wings. And, they would leave him, because by hitting Kandiho, they are getting close to Museveni's inner circle. They are getting close to his family, because Kandiho is the first cousin of Janet Museveni. And what that means is that until they hit Muhoozi publicly, then I will know that, okay, now these guys are really serious for, to have these guys chopped. But now, by hitting Kandiho, it is hitting closer, but it's not close, let me say. And what that means is that still the Americans will Kandiho has to fall on the chopping board, and then patch up or bandage up the relationship and do something extremely big. And I believe that the sanctioning of Kandiho, as well as the snubbing of Museveni at the Democracy Summit, something much bigger is going to happen starting of next year, that they are going to give Museveni in return. That's how international politics works, I think, in order to suit the so-called American interests. And I think that's it. But the happiest person of all these particular sanctions, I think, is General Kaihura, because Kandiho is the gentleman who actually took down Kaihura and his entire network. And by Kaihura looking at Kandiho, he's like, oh, welcome to the club. And for Kaihura to see Kandiho saying that, I'm not bothered, I will concentrate on my work, blah, 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 blah. By next year, that work is not going to be there. We are going to see a very big reshuffle within the military. And trust me, that's how, because Museveni is very funny. And the people who fight for the people who fight for him nowadays are really, it's quite interesting. Because look here, some people Museveni would like to get rid of, right? And at times he can't. But at times, an external power would come and say, okay, now we are taking Kaihura down. And now that leaves Kaihura at the mercy of Museveni. And then Kaihura, that does not take him away from supporting Museveni, but he comes out openly supporting Museveni in order to save him from the sanctions. And this is what I think this sanction as well, to be politically analytical, it's a double-edged sword. Because what this means is that it boxes Mr. Kandiho straight into the corner of Museveni, looking at him as his savior. It is only Museveni that can intervene and help him. For example, if he's stuck and he needs medical attention to go to America or to go somewhere else, it is only Museveni that can help him. But on the other hand, that's where NUP and all these other parties have to continue with the pressure and making sure nothing goes unnoticed and exert as much pressure as possible, so that do not to leave these loopholes for Museveni to be able to use them in one way or the other. But I truly believe that by Kandiho being targeted internationally because he thinks that it's only America. Oh, not only America. Australia is coming for you. European Union is coming for you. Canada, as well as the United Kingdom, because they all share or they all have some sort of sanctions that are related to the global Magnitsky sanctions. So that's what Kandiho should know. And the global Magnitsky sanctions do not only affect you as an individual, but they also affect your family and close relatives. So before you make any statement, Mr. Pensothin General, I think you should sit back and think about what just happened to you. Because I'd like to tell you, my friend, it doesn't look good at all. Because look here, the Rwandese don't like you. They don't want you to be traveling to their country. And now the Western world has also sanctioned you. Maybe you'll go to China or Russia. All I can say is to wish you the best of luck. Because you will need it. Okay, guys, that's me. My name is Mayanja Fazir. Thank you very much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please endeavor to support us on Patreon. Patreon is a platform where you can contribute £2 or £4 per month for the work that we do here and the research that we come and teach you here. So please just look into the comment section. You'll find the link. You just click that link and you can drop £1 or $1, 1 or 2 for just to help us to keep the shows running and free of charge. Okay, let us meet in the next video. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.